time when I started knowing Comrade, I was with Comrade Tabosejana Mani and the late Comrade Nomvula Tlangwana. They introduced me to an organization called Mafikeng Anti-Repression Forum. In short, it was called MAREF. So during those days, things were very tough under the Bob Bantustan. We needed to have each and every opportunity we have to tell the outside world how difficult it was to say Viva ANC, how difficult it was to wear an ANC t-shirt, and how harassed people were. Now, MAREF was a platform where we engaged international community. I remember myself, Comrade Laura, the late Comrade Botu Mahila, Comrade Nomvula, also who passed on, and Comrade Mandla Makwechane, together with Thabo, if my memory serves me well. We went into Volkswagen, the white one, with the CE registration, I remember. We went to Johannesburg to Brown Street, no, Pretoria to Brown Street. Comrade Mandla was driving the red Toyota Corolla that belonged to the late Comrade Nomvola. We went there to go and picket. Oh yes, I was also with Comrade Wandile Twenyo. We went there to picket at the American Embassy. At that time, I won't reflect my age, but I was still very young. I was a bit scared. And I held the placard over my head. Comrade Laura came to me and said, "Hey, Comrade Diallo, why are you doing that?" "No, Comrade, I'm fine." But we sent the message. What was important was what was written on my placard, and all of us. Let me tell you that at that time, we were highlighting the plight of comrades who staged the coup against Mangope. When Mangope wanted to send them to death, we were all over the international media, we were all over the embassies to say the lives of those comrades. I'm happy that they are still alive today. But I'm not happy that what we all envisaged, if you can look at the program, there are pictures where Comrade Paul was with some of these prisoners. We visited them in OD prison. No, it was OD hospital where they were imprisoned, and also in Bupilong after they went on hunger strike. So now, what I'm saying that we are happy that we saved the lives of these comrades who, through their contribution, showed that the apartheid settlement in the form of Bantustan have to be demolished. They wanted to overthrow the Bob government. Unfortunately, they were not strong enough for the South African Defence Force. We just stopped that coup within minutes, but they made a point. Where are they now, comrades? Where are they now? I don't have any recollection of any of them occupying a seat in government. I'm not saying for them to stage a coup, they deserved to be given a seat in government. No. But they are nowhere. Majority of them are still unemployed. Some who are fortunate got employment elsewhere outside Mafikeng. One of them has decided to leave Mafikeng. He decided to leave South Africa. He's in the United States, and I believe he's doing well that side. But how do we lose such treasures? His name is Timothy Phiri. He left South Africa. He left because the ANC that Comrade Paul was a chairperson to is not the same ANC we joined in the early 90s. Because when you have to go to a branch general meeting, Instead of taking documents of Mukhabolo and everything, you then take your gun, you then take your knife, you then take everything that can help you to kill whoever is going to contest for that position. And this is not the ANC that Comrade Paul joined. Look at what happened in Mpumalanga. In the branch meeting, gunshots were fired and people were killed. This is not the ANC that Comrade Paul joined. Now, Comrade Paul, at that time, as I was still a member of the ANC Youth League, there was a secret meeting that was held in what is currently called this restaurant. I forgot the name that's slipping, but it was a surgery of Dr. Green. We went into that surgery in the middle of the night to launch the ANC. And I can tell you that even those who contested Comrade Paul as the secretary and Comrade Job Mokoro as the chairperson, they were not intimidated by saying, I also want this position. No. It went quite well. We were hugging each other thereafter, happy that we have elected the executive. I don't want to reflect about the current situation. Now, as the ANC Youth League, we were motivated by these developments. Comrade Themba Gwabeni, I don't know whether at that time he was a Youth League member or not, but he played a very crucial role in helping us to launch the branch of the ANC Youth League. We then sent out pamphlets stating that we are going to launch the first branch of the ANC Youth League in Mafikeng. We are going to launch it at St. Mary's High School. There's a hall that we used to meet there. So the police were all over the place, securing the place so that when we started to hold a meeting, they should immediately arrest us. But Comrade Themba collected all of us, told us to wait for him in Lumanyaneng. He took us in the big van, gray van, I remember, a Dodge. We went to a place that I did not even know it existed in Mafikeng. We codenamed that area 007. That's where we launched our first branch of the ANC Youth League, and we are still united, and we are still united now. So the police went all over there, they found nobody. But we took this from the ideas of Comrade Paul and the rest of the leadership who went to the surgery thinking that people were going to consult, only to find that there was no medical consultation, but it was the launch of the ANC. So I'm coming now to the activities of Maref. We used to be arrested. I remember at some stage when the police came to my house at home, they woke me up around 2 a.m. One of the police officers slapped my mother when she tried to stop her from arresting me, because my mother just did not understand at 2 a.m. when I was still asleep, what crime did I commit? Now, however, that did not deter the police from doing what they did. They took us the following day after my arrest. They called me to an office. Kakanye is one of the, is actually the one who interrogated me. He offered me a cup of tea. I was so skeptical, thinking that should I drink it? Is it poisoned or not? But anyway, I said a little prayer and my God was there with me. In that interrogation room, he said to me, you know what, man? Let me tell you, just relax. You know, as we speak now, Walter Sisulu sold Mandela. We gave Walter Sisulu money for him to sell Mandela so that Mandela is now in prison. But I said to myself, how come Walter Sisulu sell Mandela and he's also arrested? Anyway, He then said to me, you know what, you are losing out on good opportunities. We deported Comrade Paul and Laura Taylor, but we are working with them. We are working with Themba Gwabeni, we are working with Nomvula Kongwane. They are giving us information. I say, okay. So why don't you give us information? We'll give you money. And I say, okay, you know what? Those people that you have just mentioned, they are my leaders. So the information that you get from them is fresh information from Shell House. So if I give you what they told me, I might forget along the way. So stick with them. They are fine. I know they are good with handling information. So stick with them. But should I have took it the other way without thinking deeper? I could be saying my comrades are selling us out. Because right now, when you say somebody is corrupt, somebody is now coming to say, yeah, this guy is a sellout and all these things. We know these things. So they are called intelligence, but they have little percentage of it, if there is any. But anyway, comrade, I was trying to give the reflection of the comrade Paul I know. As soon as we get arrested, Comrade Paul and Comrade Laura will contact Lawyers for Human Rights. I remember the late Panchia Mangel and Tsebiso Rampele used to run very quick to make sure that our release is secured. And I still thank you for that, Comrade Laura. I still thank you, Comrade Paul. I know you are in heaven, you can hear me as I speak, and the children too. Thank you for the contribution. I've learned so much from Comrade Paul. The politics that I think I know, I got a lot from him. He was a teacher. So, to the family I'm saying, we have lost a hero. We have lost somebody that would listen to whenever we need any assistance. Right now, when you call a comrade and say, you know what, comrade, I have this challenge, this is happening, so the comrade will tell you to call you tomorrow. And when you call, you won't find that comrade. They won't answer your phones. Comrade Paul, when he came to Mafikeng, I'm one of the few people that he called. He told me that I'm here, we can talk, I know your problems, you have your problems that I'm very much aware of. And I'm going to make sure that I address your matter. It was not only about me, but I'm talking about the rest of us who wanted to approach people in those positions. Some of them are not easy to talk to. Some of them would decide that I don't remember this comrade anymore. By the way, who's your name? Anyway, Comrade Paul is not that kind of a character. And I'm pleased to have shared this life with him. I hope God will secure him and make him rest in peace. Amanda.
No, thanks, Comrade Diale. You see, the problem with the first speaker, they all mess everything up. I said to Comrade Diale 5 minutes, he took 15 minutes. For those who will be coming after him, please let's stick to what we agree upon. In his input, Comrade Diale referred to the soldiers who attempted a coup. For those who do not know, as you drive towards Lichtenberg on your right, there's a Rooigrond prison. Just next to it, there's a building there. It was a special court, specially built for those soldiers. It was easy for Bob government, take them from Rooigrond 2 seconds into the court, and then there you go. So I think it's a challenge to our government to say, let's do something about that building. Let's see if you can turn it into something that will always have something to remember. Those comrades played a very critical role in the liberation of our movement. Let me welcome, I did not welcome comrades by name, but this red Corolla, I'm going to welcome by name. Comrade has just referred to a red Corolla. Comrade Mandla Makwetjana, you are welcome. Comrades, with a revolutionary song, we're calling to the stage a dancer. A comrade will take his knee this high up. Can we request that we welcome on stage the former chairperson of the branch of the ANC, taking over from Comrade Paul and Comrade Job, Comrade Temba Gwabeni.
I have my own song. Sisters, please. That's a hymn here. Amazing Grace. If you can sing that song for me. Thank you very much. The family of Comrade Daphne, relatives, friends, extended family, all of you comrades, our movement, the glorious movement, the African National Congress, and its alliance partners. All of you comrades, I greet you. This is a very historic day. And this hymn, I'm not going to explain it, it says it all. We can only appreciate the time and the little contribution that we have made in the struggle. For we do not choose our destination. The destination that we take, the path that we take, it's determined even before we are born. Ours is just to appreciate and say, we have gone this far. This comrade was selfless. He's a man that if I am required again in my next life to go to battle with, I will agree that I'm here. Let's go to battle. This is the selfless leader, the leadership that we so dearly need, the leaders that we need today. But I dare say it's not late. When we were in the struggle, comrades, we're not in the struggle for us to be given position that and mess up and do it. No. We gave sacrifice, we were called, it was a duty for us, for our children here, the children here, and their great-grandchildren will be the beneficiaries. We're merely laying a foundation. Few as we were at that time, and I have no regrets. We knew each other, there were no cell phones, there's no WhatsApp, nothing. But it was trust, determination, and this amazing grace that has made us to emerge victorious. We knew when we were in the struggle that our names were written. Even if we get lost, we get buried in unmarked graves, we didn't care because we knew that our names were registered and they were with Tambo in Lusaka. That gave us a peace of mind when we were in those cells. We never broke. We can't now break because we don't have food, we have not paid rent, hey, children have not get school fees, wara, hey, deployment. No, we wanted freedom and we got what we wanted, freedom. So this son of the soil knew that very well. That's why there was Black Sash. Our family could not go there to those children of Satan to bring me a Colgate or a toothbrush, no. But Black Sash could do that. Maref could do that. Maref could do that. Comrade Manda here, one morning he comes around 3 o'clock, gets to my house. He said, Comrade Tamba, just telling you that they've taken Nomvula. I'm sure they'll be coming for you. I said, thank you very much. He never said, petrol, he will see. He came right to say that this is an alert. This is the situation. Those were the times where there were no impediments. Hey, Harna, and I'm not undermining anything. Hey, Harna load shedding, therefore this one must go, as if the one who comes tomorrow, he'll press the light and then there will be mutlakas all over. No, we used to endure. We used to carry the pain. We used to carry heavy hearts. You'll be beaten until you are blue. But this grace that is in you will never allow you to break, will never break. So I'm not going to be long because fortunately Comrade Laura knows that we are in a huge program with Professor Kuno, Advocate Seth Ntai, in some project. Halima Motlante, the former president, is involved to write, to tell the story. You see, I was saying to Mutusi when he called me and said, we're going to put you in the memorial service. I said, who, me? How? And he said, yeah, you are relevant because I know that there are many other leaders who came after us. And I don't cry and go and ask people to amend the programs. and the Dluasis took days because there are so many things to do. We deliver us this freedom. It's in your hands. It's up to you what you do. But what I'm happy about is that the ANC has now found out that there are people who are incorrigible, who are below rock bottom. They must be taken out. I will never visit them in Rooigrond. When they are there, they must not call me. They deserve it because we gave them freedom. So Paul must be his name in Mahikeng. This is his town. This is his city. He has made an indelible mark. He must be celebrated. Memorial lectures must come in. Institutions must be named after him because he is a real hero. He never gone around and say, hey, I did XYZ. No. And I'm grateful that Comrade Bushimape deemed it fit to go get him to come and help us. Because then we are able to say, but when we were here many years ago, during Magwejana's time and Huhu's time, the situation was this. Why are we going down and not going up? And when we say, why are we going down, are we not going up? Don't think that we secretly lift, we want you to put us in your office. No, we are merely saying to you, this thing is wrong, this thing can't be done this way, you can improve in the name of this glorious movement. Because the movement remained glorious. Liskala jala ANC mon, yone show born, high silenzian. But to keep on Batenang, Barweli Merwalo, Yona Iso, is sharp. Even in 2024, we are going to vote the ANC because this is a good liberation movement. The day you leave it and abandon it, now in the Kumbula and this Emmanuel, like we got like our Baba Temb, Bahuli beats about a little quat. Mutsigar, Bahuli Rabar little quat. Can you stand that? You can't. This is the only organization, its alliance partners, that has the capacity to take us somewhere. So fare thee well, my brother, fare thee well until we meet again. This was a journey of brave men and women. This was a journey of young lions. This was a journey of people who never be intimidated. This was a journey of sons and daughters of warrior men and warrior women who were taught never to take one step backward. Amanda.
Thanks, Comrade Temba.
Association, and because he was an activist, there was no guaranteeation notices. They were both South African citizens, but they were declared persona non grata. And every time the thunder roared, everyone yelled, "Awetu!" So it was the most amazing march back to the university in that way. Soon after that, Paul and Mandla Magwechana were detained for 2 weeks, and they were together in a cell, so they got to know each other extremely well at that time. And soon after that, it was June 16th, and what happened then is that I met Mandela's sister, Nomvula Hlongwane, and Boto Mahila, and Dial, I mean, all the Glebo Mona, all these comrades who were part, we formed the Mafeking Anti-Repression Forum. Dr. David Green, Dr. Thabo Rangaka, Boto Mahila, there was a lady called Lynn Garwin as well, who was also extremely active. But so all these unsung heroes. Anyway, so we formed MAREF, and at June 16th, there was heavy repression, and we announced our presence in Mafeking because Nomvula and myself actually went to the security police officers to challenge them, to say, why have you detained all of these school kids and why are you torturing them? Well, they were delighted. They invited us in and we found ourselves detained. And that wasn't once, there was many, many, many times that we were detained. What happened at the end of that year is that Paul was deported, along with David Green. They were both issued deportation notices. They were both South African citizens, but they were declared persona non grata. And we were forced to move to Rooigrond, which was just here. And it was just, the absurdity of the BOP situation was so well displayed, because 100 meters on one side of us was BOP, and about a kilometer on the other side was BOP. And there we were, sitting in our little cottage at Rooigrond, and I was working at the university then, so I used to drive into the university every day. At that stage, South Africa released all of the political prisoners. All of them were released, without exception, and they claimed that all of the political prisoners throughout South Africa had been released. But there were still 166 political prisoners sitting in BOP cells, particularly here at Rooigrond. And most of those were coup prisoners, but they were also people from various communities, and there was an MK operative, there was an Azanla operative. But as soon as it was declared that they were all released, they started going on hunger strike, because they were not released. We were in South Africa. This farce of BOP wasn't real. And we had to get into gear to prevent these people from dying on hunger strike. Some of them, there were a couple of them who went, and I kid you not, up to 60 days on hunger strike. There was one man in particular, Bushi Molefe, who was on hunger strike for longer than 60 days, and very tragically, within a month of being released, he actually passed away because his system had just been put under too much strain. But MAREF became the key supporters of the hunger strikes, and Paul, sitting in that cottage where he was not allowed to come into BOP, he worked day and night to overthrow Mangope. We had a computer, a telephone line, a printer, and a fax machine. There were no cell phones, there were no emails even in those days. And using what was fairly crude technology in those days, we launched this publicity campaign which went around South Africa and around the world. And Paul was absolutely at the heart of that. He also got, he was also, I'm trying to tell a few stories. I don't want to tell the whole history. I can speak for hours on it. But during that time, there were only 3 times that Paul broke his deportation order. And they were quite funny times. The first time, he woke up at night and he had a moth stuck in his ear. A moth had crawled into his ear. And I've never had that, but it was on his eardrum, and it was like scratching on his eardrum. He was going crazy. He was screaming, literally. I didn't know what to do, but Dr. Thabo Rangaka was at Bopilong Hospital. It was 5 o'clock in the morning. I phoned Thabo, and I said, Paul has got a moth stuck in his ear. Thabo's a psychiatrist. I know he's trained as a doctor, but he's not the best ear doctor in the world, believe me. So at 5 o'clock in the morning, I rushed Paul to Bopilong Hospital, and Thabo came there with these tweezers, and Paul screamed even louder because afterwards he had this quite big injury in his ear, but Thabo got the moth out. And then we went back. Another time was during the hunger strikes, and you cannot believe how this thing worked, because some people were in hospital in Bopilong, some were in Tusong, some were in Odi, and we were rushing around all over the place trying to support them. And one day we had got so good at it, we had comrades within the nurses and so on, so we knew when it was safe and when it was not safe. And so we took Paul to Tusong one day, Tusong Hospital, and there's a series of photographs of him sitting with the hunger strikers, and he was breaking his ban, but we knew it was safe. So we got him there, we got him back out, and then the third time was at the end of that year. Our house was burnt down in mysterious circumstances, but we're pretty sure that it was the BOP security police that did it. And so I'm talking about the house in Rooigrond. It was a thatch roof cottage, so when it took, it just went up like that. And so we were left without a place to stay, and briefly we moved into Mafikeng. By that stage, many of the political prisoners were in the process of being released, and there were reception parties going on in Mabatu. And we had got very close to these guys because we had seen them through the entire year of seeing them almost dying, and then, you know, it was a real struggle. All of them almost all of them did multiple hunger strikes during that time. And I don't know if you've gone without food for a day or two, but it's tough. These guys went without food for 30 and more days. Anyway, it was one comrade in particular, China Monyadi. It was his party, his reception party, and Paul and I went to it. And we were there, and Paul was breaking his order. Suddenly, the entire place was surrounded by hippos, if you remember those hippos that the police used to use, and there were soldiers with automatic weapons, and there was one of the police, security police, whose name has slipped me at the moment, but he was completely drunk because it was on a Friday night. And he came in, and they were so pleased they'd found Paul, they'd got Paul. And we rapidly called Mangal Pancha, who was another absolutely amazing man who passed away. He was our lawyer. We relied on Mangal for everything. He just rushed here, there, and everywhere. He came and he basically said he calmed the situation down, because what had happened, the political prisoners loved Paul. There was a big guy called Sam who had put his arms around Paul like that, and he wasn't going to let anyone take him away. And then Mangal came and said, look, you have to let them take Paul. That's the only thing to do. So Paul was then detained. He spent 3 days in jail again, and there was a court appearance, and then he was redeported. So he was deported twice from BOP. Paul also he had a brilliant mind and brilliant ideas, and he was very courageous in the things that he thought up. So Themba spoke about Black Sash. Black Sash was actually banned in BOP. Now this was really an innocent organization by anyone's standards. It was a bunch of white women who would stand with black sashes around themselves and hold placards. So Paul came up with the idea to invite them into Mafikeng to protest. and we got them in. It was crazy because of this ridiculous place. We actually took them over the bridge in the Lonely Park area, over the security police. The security police were underneath the bridge waiting for us because they knew this was going to happen, and we got them in. They stood there with their placards at Mega City, and then we all ended up being the guests of Mangope in his police cells once again for several days. But it was fantastic because the publicity was absolutely wonderful. And Paul wasn't there, he was at Roykron, so he was just pumping the publicity out on this event. And then he also dreamed up a sit-in at the American Embassy in Pretoria. And so he took with him Sarah Mariotle, whose husband was in Roykron, and Botu Mahilo, whose husband was also in Roykron prison. And they organized a meeting with someone in the embassy. They went in, and while they were sitting with this woman, they said, we are now staging a sit-in. And she turned from friendly to incredibly unfriendly, and she called in the US Marines, who we didn't know actually guard every single embassy. And they just grabbed Paul, who wasn't, I mean, he was quite big, but he wasn't the largest, but these huge Marines just grabbed him and marched him out. There was no way they were going to tolerate a sit-in in their embassy. And the ladies, Botu and Sarah, they were pushed down onto typist chairs and wheeled out of the embassy. So that was probably the shortest-lived sit-in in an American embassy ever. And then afterwards, we went and staged a protest. One of the stories that Paul has actually written was about the lowering of the BOP flag. And we will share it as much as possible. But for him, that was a fantastic moment because he came back. We came back in 1994, and Paul was in the transitional government. Daniel there was born in 1994. In August, so he was a freedom baby, and everyone who was born post 1994 were freedom babies. And Paul had to supervise the lowering of the South African flag, and in that case, the lowering of the BOP flag and the raising of the new South African flag. And that was on the night of the 26th of April, 1994. And he has written a beautiful story about the emotions that he felt at that particular moment of entering the freedom of our new country. And so just in memory of Paul, the South Africa that we fought for, we all know, has not turned out how we wanted it to be. It is far from that. And that is the great tragedy that we face. But it is still possible to turn it around if people actually get inspiration from the heroes of the struggle day and realize that we actually put our lives on the line to gain this freedom that we all take for granted now. So please do not forget this. And I just want to say, Paul, hamba kahle, you will never be forgotten. And we know that you would have loved to see grandchildren born. We will see you one day because we will be going to the place where you are. Paul also has 3 foster daughters who grew up with Daniel and Matthew, Gina, Tsidi, and Itumeleng. They are unfortunately not here at the moment, but I wanted to let you know that he ended up having 5 children. And so he will have a lot of grandchildren one day. Hamba kahle, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you very much. After such a moving message, we read from Psalm 34, verse 18, we say this to the family: the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Amen. We go to the next item. It's a poem which has been authored by Comrade Tato Makhukhudi, and it's going to be rendered by Daniel Daphne. Over to you, my brother.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd just like to say thank you for my mom for reliving the glory days of her and my dad so passionately. That was quite moving. I'm reading this poem from my cell phone because I don't possess an iPad like our president. In memory of Paul Daphne. Shall we cry for you or sigh for you, guerrilla warrior, because your trigger has been jammed by death? Or shall we celebrate what you taught us on earth? The thing of death is that it is a hell of a mischievous thing. It can rob us of rare finds like the son of Daphne, and definitely leaves us dumbfounded and mind-grounded. In Bra Paul, we learned them all from his shore. He taught us that whiteness was not a sickness, gave us in action the plausibility of class suicide. Even though your options were wide, you exchanged white privilege for revolutionary bondage. In defense of a skin foreign to your body, yet a course close to your heart. From anti-bop uprisings to post-democracy awakenings, you played your part. Now your teachings are an art to be marveled at, for your run looked impossible in a world where white supremacy was an untamable fallacy. In a country where freedom has been turned into a fiefdom for the few, a country where happiness is a hint of dodginess, madness a virtue, and sanity a sign of weakness, while honesty a ticket to hunger. We are proud of you because you knew. We are humbled by you because you are calmed by compassion with ease, and you cease to be. Rest in peace, soldier of justice. Thank you.
Thanks, Daniel, for the poem. Comrades, can I request that as we call on stage the representative of the Northwest government, can I request that those who were mentioned here, and some do not know, others were not called by names, just to stand up so that we get to know you. When it was referred to MAREF, the Staff Association, and all those activists who were there during the Bophuthatswana era, for those I can see, I'm going to call you by name so that you stand up and we get to know and see you. Comrade Katse Mangwenyane. Next to him is Comrade Mukari Morwe, Comrade Mandla Makwechana, Comrade Diale Khansi, Comrade Mutusi Shupinyane, Youth Leaders. Can you please stand up? Comrade Temba Gwabeni, Comrade Thabo Sejana Mane, Youth Leaguers, stand up. I'm not going to call you by name. Just stand up, you know who you are. Who else is here? Comrades, when you speak of the activists in the Bophuthatswana era, These are the people who were, Comrade Laura, can you please stand up? You two were there. Comrade Animal, why are you sitting? Comrades, excluding me, ne? Everybody, comrades, that Comrade Kimpi, can you please, who else is here? I see the comrade on my left. These are the people, comrades, that participated and made sure that the ANC is alive. Though we are told that there were no politics in Bophuthatswana, it is not true. These are the activists that formed the ANC in the then Bophuthatswana. Leaders of the Youth League, Comrade Muthusi Shupinyane, and the rest, excluding me, of course. Comrades, we all aware that Comrade Smart's our aim, but it's okay. Comrade Paul was back in the Northwest Provincial Government, helping the current Premier to deal with the issues of the government. Can I now request that we ask the choir to help us welcome on stage the representative of the provincial government, MEC for Health, the provincial secretary of the South African Communist Party, but wearing the other cap now. Can I request that we call Comrade Madoda Sambata to give us a word or two? Comrade Madoda.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I'm representing government. I'm finding it difficult to say, Amandla, Amandla, Amandla. Forward with the fighting spirit of Comrade Paul Daphne, forward. Forward with the fighting spirit of Comrade Paul Daphne, forward. Greetings to the family first and comrades from the family. It's good that we are not addressing a family, we are addressing an activist family. That's why it's very easy for you, Comrade Laura and the family, to accept what has happened, though it was never expected. It's because we are a family of activists. I must also greet the Veterans League and all its leaders, greet the leadership of MAREF, the leadership of the ANC, the leadership of the SACP. I see the provincial chairperson, ANC leadership, SANCO and COSATU, Youth League and the Women's League, Staff Association and unions. It might be that Staff Association has formally been replaced by the current unions we have in the university sector. I'm speaking on behalf of the provincial government, and I think that it's good that I speak on behalf of the provincial government, because both me and Comrade Paul Daphne would have been rejected by the current rise on tribalism across the country. across the country. It's not only here. You see, provinces, as they are designed on their own, they breed tribalism. It's not necessarily only in human beings in the province, but provinces on their own, as they are designed, they breed tribalism. If you just listen to the contribution of Comrade Paul, Daphne, and Comrade Laura, you can conclude that those who don't have that history, if the ANC was to say Paul Daphne is the mayor of Mahikeng, we would have had Mahikeng closed and burning. Because they would have been arguing that he's a white man, it's not possible that he should be from Mahikeng. And that black-skinned individuals who only speak Setswana should have been the ones who are seen as mayors of Mahikeng. And it's partially because of something else that political parties may speak about, or the provincial chair of the SACP, the decline in the level of class consciousness we have in the South African society, the decline of class consciousness that we have in the South African society. Now, Comrade Paul did not only work in government when he came back recently. Like Comrade Laura has said, he was there in 1994. And of course, responsible for lowering and taking up, lowering the Bob flag and taking up the South African flag. But also he served as a DDG at one time. But what is always good is, he was secretary, Comrade Job was chair. When Job was DG, he was DDG. So at that time you could understand the way how the organizational contribution and understanding is then infused in governance. And between that period of 1994 until 98, 99, that was well understood and well kept. Things started going hayway from 99 upwards. We must not start with 2007, started in 99, okay? So, Comrade Paul also worked with Comrade Edna, as we know, in government. But I want to take lessons that government does not help build consciousness of individuals. Government it served individuals, whether class or no class consciousness by society. Because the feeder to government is the political system of the country, especially when you're dealing with a country that has an electoral system like ours. So the political system can give government a misfire, and the political system can give government a better cadre. So it is how the political system functions that contributes in strengthening governance. Surely, the stability in the political system has a direct contribution in the stability of the governance system. If those that we have in the governance system are unable to preserve a proper governance, we must check to the political system as to whether the political system is stronger enough to produce capable individuals to serve in the state or government. So people like Comrade Paul, we used to call him Bra Paul. Even at the time, recently when he came back as an advisor, we had got at least good and balanced advices from him. He's one of those who, when they are advisors, they are not praise singing, but they give advice. And it gives you, as the one advised, an option of whether to accept the advice or to ignore the advice because you don't agree with the advice. Quite often, many comrades hate those that give them an independent advice. They only prefer an advice that is almost praise singing, something that advisors attend to hero worshippers, that their advices are based only on that. Comrade Paul was not like that. In fact, one element that you must also take as a lesson is that Comrade Paul and Comrade Laura had almost developed parallel to what you would have observed as Joe Slovo and Ruth First. Exactly a similar development. But what is good about them that we must keep telling people in Northwest and keep telling people in Mahikeng and in South Africa is that this notion here, white monopoly capital, in real sense does not exist, because the revolutionary struggle was not based on race. The revolutionary struggle was based on liberation of mankind, irrespective of race. And in that instance, you are able to define capital as an exploitative nature, irrespective of color. Because capitalists and capital remain the same, whether white or black. I normally use an example about Guptas. Or if you don't use Guptas, you use ArcelorMittal, the old ISCO then. ArcelorMittal is under an Indian capital. Indian capital, ArcelorMittal. If you say white monopoly capital, you make them excluded in the definition because they are not white, they are Indian. The CAF president, Comrade Mutsipe, is black, but is capitalist. If you say white monopoly capital, you exclude him from the definition. But what we can say on behalf of the provincial government is that we remain a government almost as expected by the Freedom Charter, which proclaimed that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, black and white. Those that would come after me would have to toil around a reality we find ourselves under, that predominantly we are becoming either a black party or a black government. Yet, on our own conviction, 1955, black and white, as developments are, that component of non-racialism is beginning to dwindle. We used to even have an argument when we were in Mafikeng that if we miss white people, we simply go to Ocean Basket. Because in the population or in the workplace, they've been declining quite in a sizable number. So Comrade Paul's contribution to the provincial government has been actually as a worker and a manager, but also later became an advisor to the Provincial Executive Council ourselves. But also the lesson we can learn from him is that everything he did was ideological. Check to the courses he chose to study and lecture. They are political. Check to the universities he has been a lecturer on. Political. Predominantly black universities, all of them, with no change. He has always understood his contribution would be for the development and liberation of the South African society, irrespective of color. As to what happens post his life, it's for the preachers to decide. This is where communists differ with religion. We believe in freedom, 100% freedom and survival of human beings whilst they are alive. We believe in their liberation whilst they are alive. As to what happens to them post-death, someone must then talk with them and the other person, the other people believe in existence. But in real sense, Comrade Paul's contribution cannot be denied by anyone who knows development and the political development of Northwest, especially during the Bob terms. The irony is that those that were active then, Comrade Sibagwane, Provincial Secretary, those that were active then cannot make it on an open organizational ballot today. They can easily be dislodged even by people who were active in UCDP then. In my peers, the people who write about me and say, hey, go to Eastern Cape, all of them, when I was in the Youth League in Northwest, they were in UCDP in Northwest. So me and them had different ideological choices. I had chosen to be in the ANC Youth League at my young age. They are my peers. They chose to be in UCDP Youth at that time. Majority of them only joined the ANC after 2016. Only when UCDP collapsed. But today, they are the ones who would not remember the contribution of Comrade Paul Daphne. They are the ones who would not remember the contribution of Comrade Themba Kwabeni. They only know Themba Kwabeni insofar as Brazil trip is. And that's the only thing they know, and nothing else they know. It relates only with the time they were beginning to come back to ANC politics recently, around 2004. So society on its own, the stories have to be told, Comrade Laura, because it helps conscientize those that are living post that period. What we are lacking in South Africa is a definition of what kind of society we aspire for. We can be fighting about blackouts, electricity. Who is the reason? The reason for us to have a problem of electricity blackout, originally, it's neoliberal choices, originally. Because in 1998, when ESCOM said, we must build extra power stations so that in the coming future we don't have demand surpassing supply. The government then, our government, said, no, you don't build. Private sector is there, it's going to build. No private sector built until when government again took a decision to build. which was to build Kusile and Midupi. Very late, and we are in the problem as we speak. On behalf of the Premier, especially, the one who worked directly with Comrade Paul of late, and on behalf of the provincial government, the provincial EXCO, which we were beneficiaries of his advices, we're saying to the family and everyone else who has been involved with the life of Comrade Paul, you are not the only ones who's feeling the loss. We too are feeling it's a loss never expected. The only process is that whoever takes decisions to take people does not ask those that are living. Because there are many people that would have released and preserved Paul's life with the release of them, because the value we contribute in society, it's not the same. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mhlekasi. For thine is thy kingdom, the power and the glory forever and ever. Hallelujah. Amen. We are now at a stage where we are going to call upon a representative from the family. Over to you.
So we've spoken at length about my father's political career, but I'd like to touch on a different side of him, and that is his passion for nature. As his son, this was the side of him that I experienced far more than his political side. My father was not only a champion of the downtrodden, but he was a champion of nature too. As long as I can remember, he was a lover of the natural world, and particularly of trees. During my early years, when we lived in Mahikeng, in the embassy complex, he planted a small forest of indigenous trees. Going back to that house now, 20 years later, those trees beautifully fill the garden, some of which are now massive, despite being roughly the same age as myself. In my dad's previous property in Midrand, he told me he had planted over 100 indigenous trees. I think it was one of his favorite forms of relaxation when he wasn't working, to just be in the garden, watering them. I believe he had a nurturing soul. He nurtured his children in the same way he nurtured his trees. As he did with his trees, he helped his children to grow. Not only did he provide everything they needed, but he also guided their growth in the right direction. He imparted his wisdom onto us to help us with our outlook on life and the decisions we have to make in it. I also grew to love nature through my dad. Luckily for me, he worked for Sand Parks for 13 years, during which we visited most of the national parks in the country. During these visits, if we went on a hike, several compulsory lectures would be dished out as we passed various indigenous trees. He would explain how to identify the tree, why it's significant, tell us the local name, the English name, the Afrikaans name, the African name, and even the Latin name. He wasn't just passionate about trees, he was passionate about all things natural, whether it was rock formations, mountains, rivers, or sunsets. I've spent many evenings with him, having drinks, watching the sunset over some picturesque scenery, talking about life. He of course also had a passion for animals. During our frequent game drives, Itumeleng, my dad's youngest daughter, was always our chief spotter. She was a quiet person, but would always yell out excitedly the name of an animal that she had spotted first. I'm sure my dad was very proud of her for that. I will always cherish those memories with him. Having adventures in our country's beautiful nature reserves are some of my fondest, and I will need to make those same memories with my own children one day. My dad was a rock for me. I have struggled with my happiness over the last few years. And although we lived in different parts of the country, he frequently called to check in on me. We'd have long talks about our lives and our plans. Those calls always help cheer me up and keep me grounded. Life is going to be much harder without those talks and our adventures in nature. You've left a hole in my heart, Dad. I love you, and you will be sorely missed. Thanks.
Thanks, Daniel, for the lovely message. Comrades, with a revolutionary song, let me take this opportunity to welcome on stage a comrade who will be representing the activist I referred to earlier and the friends of Comrade Paul. Let me call on stage motho o itseng ditlhako tsa ga Ben Tlhakane le metšhini ya ga Morobi, Comrade Thabo Sejanaman. Comrade Thabo.
Tusoiri ahilopa moputalo joha hura iri taho Program Director and the leadership and dignitaries present here, and Bankamu Fudeberi family, may I also take this opportunity to greet you all in the wonderful name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Amen. I would have thought that maybe when my dearest sister in Christ, Laura Taylor, when she has spoken as a chairperson, there wouldn't have been any need for me to speak. But knowing the program director, the insistence, he insisted that I must just say some few thoughts. I guess my encounter with Comrade Paul started somewhere in the early 90s, coming from the Itsoseng branch of the ANC in 1991 on the 20th of August 1990. That's the time when we were summarily dismissed because of association with the ANC by the Bob administration at the time. And the HSM branch of the ANC took a very firm decision that I should be deployed to Mafeking Anti-Repression Forum. Young as I was, I accepted the honor, and it was at the time when I happened to be exposed to knowing Paul, Daphne, Laura Taylor, Botomahila, and the entire family at the time. Very young and quite militant at the time. I happened to meet this wonderful giant who inspired me in a very great way. And part of the mandate, as Laura indicated earlier on, was to look after those detainees, and publicity was our very strongest arm to deal with the repression at the time. And the situation was so devastating in that, by virtue of being part of MAREF, you'd have to develop a very thick skin and be prepared that each time you attend a meeting or whatever kind of gathering, we had to carry alongside our toothpaste, toothbrush, and all those things, just in case if things go the other way around. But it was an opportunity for me being part of this wonderful dynamic family. And I think Paul has inspired me in a very big way. I may not repeat all the things that Laura has indicated, where Paul defaulted in terms of his deportation order. And when we were approaching, just to say the last, I think I just briefed him that that was China's party that we attended, because I was part of that as well. And it was in that space, in that cottage, that Laura made reference to. I think I was part of the family because the tools that I was exposed to at the time was a fax machine, a computer, and a telephone. That's all what we had. And Paul, militant as I was, I think inspired me to be very humble in my approach, regardless of how hostile the situation may be, such that because it is in the hostility where one would lose a lot of things. And these are the things, valuable things, that Paul really taught me. And as I spent time, I think, Lord, I might have spent almost the whole year with you in that cottage in Rooigrond, literally sleeping there, sharing almost everything. And for me, it was really a blessing to be exposed to this wonderful family, and specifically to this gentle giant. Part of my mandate was to look after them meaning the whole lot of within the political circles. If I would be so much worried when they say that there's a branch meeting that will be held somewhere else, be it in whatever spaces, at the Williams space, or maybe at Panchia's space, or so on, because I know that the minute when the repressive security officers of the then Bophuthatswana would arrive, and if they get arrested, it was time for me to work around the clock in terms of publicity, exposing all what has gone into this thing. And it was through those kind of, I was capacitated in a very big way by Paul how to argue and how to craft a press statement that it must draw the attention of the editors so that the story must sell. Because our mandate primarily was to expose the repressive laws and everything that goes along with it of the Bophuthatswana regime. And so these were the things that Paul would constantly do. And I know that every little single space and opportunity that came his way, he would try as far as is possible to create some space for Maref to be there and expose the repressive system that this administration of Mangope was practicing. Each time when the leadership of the then African National Congress were to engage in some talks with the Bophuthatswana administration, the first point of call, the ANC Secretary General's office would contact the office of Maref. And these were the spaces that Paul would create. And I'll be contacted and I'll be told that I must prepare the latest updates on repression, such that I empower the leadership, the then leadership in the form of Ndate Sisulu, led by former President Nelson Mandela. And they'll give me even the details of each and every one of the delegates to forward with the updates in terms of, so that when they meet with the administration of Mangope, they're able to raise even the current issues which happened recently. So these were the spaces that Paul, in his own way, would always create. An opportunity arose also as we were approaching the elections, where Paul, in his own way, created spaces for us as Mafikeng Anti-Repression Forum to be part, as we are part of the mass democratic movement, to be part of the 15 activists, 15, who left the country to go abroad to rally the role or define the role which the international community was going to play in the elections of this country. And that was Paul. And I had an opportunity also of being part of that 15 activists who went abroad. Washington, D.C., where we met Jesse Jackson as well, and the members of the NAACP in whatever manner. And my mandate was to raise the issue of this Bophuthatswana administration. That was Paul in his own way. I had to live wherever, whatever opportunity that I had to see to it that the Bophuthatswana administration, I exposed all those repressive laws and the system in itself, that we cannot talk about political freedom excluding this Bob administration. I had an opportunity also of exposing this thing through Paul's, in a particular way, he drummed it to me. When I was afforded an opportunity to be part of those who were interviewed together with Mojangu Gumbi at the time, who was the legal advisor in the administration of Thabo Mbeki, and also being with Titus Mafolo, who was the political advisor in the administration of Thabo Mbeki. I was part of those who were interviewed by Radio United Nations. And because Paul was not there, this militancy in me, had to come out speaking about Bophuthatswana and exposing whatever it is. Little did I know that somewhere in Israel, where Mangope used to have an embassy, somebody else was listening. And upon my arrival, in fact, I met with Tlhakanya and all this thing, and I was detained. So detention was part of us. And Paul, in his own way, would always have a way of counseling us and trying to say to us that you are on the right track, you are doing what justice is requiring of you to do as a comrade, and then you need to conduct yourself in a manner that is befitting, such that our struggle must not be perceived by those who are hostile to the cause that we are pursuing in otherwise. And I think for all of us, it is time to appreciate those little moments that we have spent with Paul, and those things that we have so much cherished with him. I think the issues of humility and being down. I remember the time when we were still at the cottage, Laura, that Paul will be so much caring to an extent of taking care even of those little boys who used to take care of the garden and all those things. I remember the names of Anthony, if you'd recall the name. And that was Paul in his own way. Very down to earth, would take care of even the mundane things that ordinarily those who are in leadership position wouldn't take care of. To Laura, Daniel, Disa, and Matthew, we had a time with Paul, and we'll continue to cherish him in our own special way, and his spirit will live forever. And probably maybe it is time for us to say, the one who's able to keep us from falling down is in charge, has taken care, and all of us should just say in one accord, may his soul rest in peace. Amen.
Re a leboga comrade, re tlo kopa khwaere e re fe pina e be re bitsa ka kwano pele representative from Northwest Parks Board, Mark Mahodielo. Kwaire, over to you.
Program Director, all esteemed leaders from our glorious movement, the ANC, and all its alliances, as well as all various formations without exception, the esteemed family of our departed leader, Mr. Paul Daphne, distinguished colleagues from various conservation agencies who are present here today, I want to take off my head in salute and honor of Paul Daphne, the leader in conservation fraternity, in conservation in broad. Paul Daphne became the first CEO of the Northwest Parks and Tourism Board after 1994. You would remember that the Northwest Parks and Tourism Board was formed as a result of the merger of what we call then Bob Tours, as well as Bob Parks, and CPA and TPA. These are conservation agencies that came together and formed what came to be known as the Northwest Parks and Tourism Board. And it was after that merger post-1994 that a new leader in the person of Paul was basically assigned to lead and drive this new agency. And I need to say he did the best a leader of the caliber that has been shared with us could do. I'm very grateful that his son touched that other component of his life. we are many and yet one. It is interesting that often we are known for a certain segment of our lives, and other components of our life at a given time, they get de-emphasized. I would like to say Paul Daphne was a great leader in conservation. And I would like to confine myself to that space. I have listened to our leaders presenting his political profile. But I must say that's another politics that is not known, or it's not common to many. We call it the green politics, or differently packaged environmental justice. I would like to highlight that Paul was also an activist within the conservation fraternity. He was an activist on matters of environmental justice. He therefore, when you package all these together, you will say he lived a complete life. Comrades, Martin Luther King Jr. is quoted to have said, "The greatest tragedy of life is not death, but to live a life without purpose." It was not the same with Paul. He was not a historical accident. He was a true leader. A true leader who upheld the attributes of a servant leader, even as you have heard how he has been described to us. He was also an embodiment of what I would call ethical leadership principles. He was a noble man, a man of integrity, honesty, and a progressive leader. He was a true combatant who fought the battle of liberation from different fronts. And as I said, the Northwest Parks Board, it's standing here presenting a tribute to him for the role that he has played as a conservationist or as an activist within the conservation fraternity. We benefited from his leadership. And I can attest on behalf of our organization that he championed a philosophy in conservation that we call a holistic, humanistic conservation management approach. In contrast to what we would call a Western reductionist conservation management approach that is by nature exclusionary in approach, species-oriented, elitist in nature, and insensitive to the plight of the ordinary people. Paul Daphne was a different CEO. He believed, as I said, in environmental justice, and he advanced what we would call, or what we call in conservation, sustainable utilization of our natural resources. This is Paul Daphne within the conservation fraternity, within the environment space. I had an opportunity to serve under him as a researcher. And I must say, I have been very grateful to serve under a leader of his caliber. In conclusion, I want to communicate on behalf of the board, and in particular my CEO, who because of another commitment, she had to leave early and asked me to hold the fort for her. We want you to know that you have lost a great man, a great leader. We have equally lost. Thank you, family, for sharing him with us. May his soul rest in perfect peace. Shalom, even as we all encourage ourselves in the knowledge that to be absent in the body is but to be present with the Lord. Thank you.
The three remaining speakers, I'm now going to be rigid on time. I'm going to request that we stick to the agreement of 5 minutes each speaker. But let me not be out of order and acknowledge the presence of the leadership of government then that appointed Comrade Paul to be the CEO of Parks Board, the Provincial Executive Council then, the current ambassador. Can I acknowledge Ntate Daki Africa amongst us? You are Mokgetsore Africa. Comrades, let me take this opportunity to welcome on stage a revolutionary, a scholar of Marx, and a leader of society. Can I call on stage the chairperson of the Provincial Committee of the South African Communist Party to come and address us, Comrade Smarts.
Mata, long live the spirit of Comrade Paul, long live. Amanda, Kilanya Massa, Kilawa, Kilanya Massa, Kilawa, White Kinane, Intremnant, White Kinane, Intremnant, Kitty Cat, Chocolate, Ticket Jack, Chocolate. Sofianin, Elusak, Sofianin, Elusak, black, green, and gold, flying high. Amanda. No thanks, Directors of Proceedings, Comrade Disa, Lona, Matthew, Dan, the rest of the family, the current and former leaders of our structures. In actual fact, in this meeting, I'm not supposed to address because there's former everything here. If you want a former chair of the ANC, you can find somewhere. If you want a former secretary, you'll find amongst the people that are here. A former general secretary of a union, you'll find in this meeting. So I'm going to adhere to the directive of the chair and just deliver a message on behalf of the South African Communist Party. Firstly, to thank the organizers of this memorial for allowing us to reflect on the life of Comrade Paul Daphne. Because for others, they just see a premier's advisor. They don't know the other part. And you see, Brian, the limitation with these appointments is that they are not made like HODs with a profile. They are just announced that these are the advisors. At least those of us who took time to come here, we now know who's Paul Daphne. It's not the complete story. There's also stories around his role on that football team in Ramatlabama, Progress. You know, that football team that had its own program. So Paul was there. But Paul has also developed many activists for this movement. Many activists. Amongst others, the chairperson of the SACP is a product of Paul Daphne. And on this occasion, it's important that we use what has been said today to assert the correctness of the revolution. Because the South African Revolution and the struggle for liberation in South Africa, it's not just an ordinary one. It remains exemplary throughout the world. When people want to change their situation in different parts of the world, they get inspiration from the struggle for liberation in South Africa. Such an important struggle, such an important history cannot be allowed to be used by criminals to loot resources that are aimed at developing the people. It's a prestigious record and heritage of our people that cannot be left to those that don't appreciate why this revolution has to be pursued. Now, unfortunately, a lot of things have been covered. You see, when you program director, you take a secretary of the Communist Party to represent government. He will speak correctly about government and reflect on what at least our recent PwC said about this Northwest Provincial Government. We said it's a government that is clear in terms of which side it's taking in a class struggle. It's not a neutral government. A government that says, in this class struggle, we don't take sides. It's a government that is clear to be on the side of the working class. So we are happy with the input of the government. It's a confirmation of what we were saying in our last meeting. But, Program Director, in summary, we are coming to celebrate the life of a giant in our struggle for national liberation. And unfortunately, there are so many good people in our movement. There are so many good people. There are so many Paul Daphnes in this movement. There are so many Paul Daphnes who are in the ANC, who are in the Communist Party. But the few that are noisy and dominating the space, they create an impression that an average person in the ANC is a crook. That's the impression that they create. Now, the people out there, Comrade Thabo, they know the ANC of high morals standards. They know the ANC to be having leaders that are the best in every community. Now they are going to continue to reject people that you bring that are not the best in the movement. So for as long as we continue to present to communities the worst in those communities, they will reject and continue to reject, refuse even to vote for the ANC. How do you justify taking somebody with a criminal record and you say this one must be a local representative of the people? Unfortunately, in this region, you can get the list of all the leaders of the ANC. The first BEC here in Mafike. Look at the profile of those people. A whole professor was a chair of the branch of the ANC. A lecturer was a secretary of the ANC. You move next door, you go to Itsuse. You have a prosecutor being a chairperson of the ANC. A medical doctor being the publicity secretary of the ANC. Now, when the ANC was established and relaunched in this region, we established certain standards. It is these standards that the people are saying we are not prepared to compromise on those standards. If you are an ANC, you are going to give us people of that standard. If you fail to give us the people of that standard, we will reject you. Now, as the Communist Party, we are going to be going into our augmented central committee. And our message is clear. We must change how we do things in the alliance. You can't want the ANC to be hijacked by criminal elements, and these criminal elements then act on behalf of all of us. We are refusing. We are refusing that part. But we will not forget the history of our struggle that was fought jointly between the ANC and the Communist Party. At the center, it's about the interest of the people. Now, Comrade Paul was everything. Leader in the ANC, in the academia, everywhere. This is the kind of profile that we need for those that have ambitions of leading structures of our movement. Now, on behalf of the South African Communist Party, we are also worried about the consciousness of the people. How do you allow people to steal? What do you call this thing here? Yeah. How do you allow that to the people? How do you allow those criminals to steal that in your own community and you don't act? It's a sign that we are not adequately conscious. But also, we don't appreciate the fact that the challenges in the struggle for national liberation impact on us dealing with the class struggle. Unless we fully appreciate what is entailed in this struggle, it will then help us to move further and advance the class struggle. Now, our ally, the ANC, is Veterans League. Receive our messages of condolence. You've lost not just an ordinary member. You've lost a soldier in Comrade Paul. You've lost somebody who will never remind people that I'm your leader. He was more interested in contributing than in recognition. So receive our messages of condolence as an ally in this revolution. But also we want to convey our sincere condolences to the family. that you allowed Comrade Paul to serve the people up to the last minute. And indeed, his record can show that he served the people. And in the last, by the way, Comrade MEC Sambata, it's a very interesting, this last part of Comrade Paul, very interesting. So I was called by the Premier then in the morning. Hey, we need Comrade Paul's number. I don't see it on my phone here. And I say, hey, what is Comrade Paul's number now? You are just 2 days in office. You are just from a Benin hotel. What do you want? Do you think he'll help you reconstruct Mabatosa? Then he says, no, Comrade Paul is going to be part of this office. Don't ask too much, that's how it happened. And there were quite interesting contributions that he made. When you look at the deteriorating state of municipalities, he made a contribution. As we speak, there have been business people organized in Lichtenberg just to contribute to service delivery. I've forgotten the surname. He was there at the back from NWK. Yeah, but Comrade Paul is leaving a legacy. As you enter Lichtenberg today, robots, or we call them what, traffic lights, they are now working. It's a contribution, yeah, Comrade Paul, getting business people organized and do something for their own community. So there's a lot that we can say about Comrade Paul. The project of the Pilanesberg Platinum Mine, he was there just to get it moving. A lot of other things. Now I refuse to go on that helicopter when they were viewing Pilanesberg. I refused, I was afraid. Hey, I'm not sufficiently covered in terms of life insurance. But he has made a contribution. And the last few weeks, something quite interesting. He will post the photos of the sunset at the embassy. And up to today, we don't understand what does that photo mean of a sunset at the embassy. I think 3 to 4 photos that were posted from October, November, and December on the advisors chat group. You'll say, this is the sunset at the embassy. So we've worked well with Comrade Paul, and on behalf of the Communist Party, the departure of Comrade Paul gives us more determination to advance the building of a powerful movement of the workers and the working class. Hambagahle, Comrade Paul. Long live the spirit of Comrade, long live. Long live the spirit of Comrade Paul, long live. Melintate humpieno kiatsamaya kia hojoena lirumo la sechava. Melintate humpieno kiatsamaya kia hojoena lirumo la sechava.
By the powers vested in me, can I get a call? That's the power behind the mic. Okay, we are now going to call upon ANC Veterans League, Comrade Alfred Nebe. Over to you, leadership.
Ke lebetse gore ga ke sana stamina mare yaka ke emisiwa ga ke emisiwe ke mongwe le mongwe ga go sena ba ba go godimo ke emisiwa ke emisi let me also, before I go the way of greetings, there is this slogan that I love most, especially after eating. It gives me strength. And I'll say, hey, tubula, tubula. Tubula, tubula. Habola newe. Tubule sinja. Tubule sinja. Hey, tubule sinja. Hello, male sinja. Hello, ma chu. Let me go, not sing too much because I often collapse because when my sugar is at 2, I collapse. And I wake up after an hour or 2 hours. So let me not allow that to happen. I've checked here, there are no medical doctors. Let me say to everybody who happened to be here, it's so nice to be here. I'm very much happy to be part and parcel. You know, in South Africa, one guy called Verwoerd, he said, because these Africans are getting more power, let us divide them. And they started to give the homelands. They said Bophuthatswana, Ciskei, Transkei. And then there was someone who was left behind, called Mpepu. He said, if so and so did it, I can also have my homeland. Now, Verwoerd said, when we have given these people homelands, when these workers are old, we dump them in the homelands so that they must die there. He said we only recruit them while they are still fresh. Now, Comrade Paul knew that even the education, they say we must not be taught a quality education. We must be farmers. That's all that was best for us. But now, all these homelands, the unfortunate part of it, they didn't have Comrade Paul. All these homelands, we had a situation where Mangope behaved as a firstborn of the homelands. He even tried Botswana. He once called one lady of Botswana who was a minister there, saying that day we want to have a relationship with you. And that lady said, do you want to trap us as you have trapped our children under apartheid? Now, the dry activism here in the whole of the then Buputatwan, because they go to part of Northern Cape. Here we belong to Northern Cape. They give part to Buputatwan. Now everybody who was made to be part and parcel of Buputatwan, it's just unfortunate today I'm not wearing a t-shirt bearing the face of any leader. But that time the police of Buputatwana, when you are wearing Nelson Mandela, he will punch you. Boo. He said, no, I've got nothing to do with you. I punch this man, this face that is on your chest. Boo, boo. So that cruelty didn't sit well with Comrade Paul. He said, how can people be treated like this? I was happy to hear one of the speakers here saying that, Comrade Paul, the whites had benefits. You know, in South Africa, there was a first class, a second class, and a third class. It's where we were dumped. But he felt that he must come down with the level of education that he had. You know, other people, if he's learned, they say, no, he doesn't use a belt, he uses this. He said, you know, since my study, you know, I went all through all the universities. Now I happen to be here. If you say to me, hey, Chief, well, how are you? Say, who are you? I don't talk to non-antics. But Comrade Paul has been part and parcel of this. I met him I think few months ago. Then I said to him, hey, Comrade Paul, one day in one incident we had a march to Pretoria. And as we were passing by the flats, someone threw an egg. One white man, I think Laura can remember that, or Mandla. One white man threw an egg on Comrade Paul because he felt that why this man, I'm sure in his heart he was calling Comrade Paul an instigator. But Comrade Paul continued to do that. There were a lot of activities here. You know, the police of Bobo were terrible. I remember one time in Fornaki, one secretary of Nehau, by the name of Figile Majol, he said, you know, even if the police of apartheid were beating people up, he said, but the police of Buputatwan, they beat you beyond repair. So that's why, you know, if you hit hard a tennis ball on the wall with a tough shot, it comes quickly to your face. That's precisely what started. You know, there was also the people who were displaced in Zirast. the people of Braklachte. There was a Kumbi, man, Mandla will remind me, Kumbi ele, it had a radiator go pay. I think Elaha Williams, eh? Laura? I'm sure it was for Williams. There was also one white man called Comrade Williams with a very big beard. So when those people were stranded, they were living in a hall here at Ikachengor. So we used to go there, and this leadership will give us support. You know, I was part-time participator because I belong to the Western Transvaal. In our region, we had a very big challenge. It's where Terreblanche one time fall off the horse while he was marching in Friedache. That is what the region that we belong to. So with Comrade Paul, many of the things, he will listen to you attentively. He won't say, no, this doesn't have substance. He will listen to you. And, you know, when he was with Manza and Job, they will stay until 2 a.m. And one time the wife of Job Mokor, as we were visiting prison here, our comrades were arrested. She said, you know, with the national leadership, because some of them have been 27 years at Robben Island, when you tell them that you have been arrested for 2 weeks, he doesn't have a wait. 2 weeks or a day or 3 days. I remember one time when Job heard President Mangope saying that ANC members, they have a mark on the ear. He went to the Taborangak and also made that mark. So those were the times that we lived on Comrade Paul. You know, when I'm home, I was fortunate I'll participate in whatever they were doing. And knowing that, we used to stay in the hostels, but I could not stay all the weekends in the hostels, being afraid of Bob. Now, we were still looking. We are, anyone here who's beyond 60 years, we are identifying the veterans. But let me explain this. If we identify a veteran in the ANC movement, we want somebody who has passed 60 years, who had been part and parcel of struggle for 40 years. We are not deliberately blocking people out. When you come, we say, let's see your profile. Some people say they have been underground, they've been in exile. And the other thing that I must also touch on, why Bob, why Putatswana thought that they were the most powerful. This was the road to exile. Everybody who must go either Botswana or Lusaka or wherever, they had to pass through either Zeerust or Mafikeng. And it was a job of our parents to give those people meals and say it's Amadi Mudimo. Now, we are identifying the veterans. There are those that are refusing to come to me because, like you can see me that I'm a boss. I'm a boss. Don't look at my jacket, saying that I'm having a big jacket. I've been taught that every time my parents used to buy big clothes for me, they say you grow into them. Even today, when I buy a jacket, I make sure that I'm going to grow into that jacket. Huh? Now we are appealing to those comrades who had been part and parcel of the organizations. You know, sometimes people will say to me, I'm living a better life, man. That's why you see me wearing a black and white shoe. I get 2,000 a month from SASSA. From SASSA. Some people will say, hey, why these comrades, like Smarts was saying, why these comrades are not deployed? How can you be deployed among the thugs? Comrade Paul will never be a part and parcel of state capture. You know, a thug is like a stolen car. It's called here today, gone tomorrow. Temba Kwabeno was saying that when they are in prison here next door, we are not going to visit them. Maybe because I'm a preacher in the Methodist Church, I'll visit them and say, you'll finish your term. Nelson Mandela did finish his term. Yeah. And then lastly, I had a chat with Daniel. Then because I've told you that I belong to God, all the time when we were surviving through the bullets and the tear gases in the Val Triangle of the army, I used to think that I'm too strong, that's why I survive. It's only now when I'm home that I was saved by the grace. That's why you see us surviving today. As I was talking to the boy, I say, you know, in Tswana we say, "Takoya morago, e gata, ha ya pele e gatileng teng." If your father was an activist, you can go and sit down and relax, but one day that thing is building up more rapidly than earthquake. So Daniel, one time, you'll be saying to people, love thy neighbor. If they speak in Afrikaans, who can be a short man, so a big man head? Or no, my neighbor is this man. And lastly, on the family, I had a comrade from Park Sport who touched on Martin Luther King. Let me also touch on one quote of Martin Luther King Jr. He said, you cannot take away hatred with another hatred. And in order to take away hatred, you need to spice some love. Secondly, he said, you cannot chase away darkness with another darkness. In order to chase away darkness, you need to put on not a load shedding ESCOM, but you need to put on a light. I say to you, the family, Comrade Laura, hey man, it's so beautiful to see you, man. I remember your colleagues. You are working tirelessly, so you are not even afraid to be deported, because over time we will hold the meetings here. But lastly, man, again Sunday, and I'm going to this. Lastly, in Psalm 46, is from the sons of Korah. It says, our God is a refuge. He is also our strength. He shows himself a very quick power during the distress. Meaning that when you are down, you get that top up from God. But verse 10 says that, be still and know that I'm God. I shall be exalted in the nations and in the heathens. So keep it up, put God first. Know that you are created in the image of God. You are not ordinary. You are created in the image of God. And once you got that spirit of your father, know that you are in the lineage of Moses, Amandla.
Thank you, Animal. I call him Comrade Animal. Colleagues, comrades and compatriots, two quick things. Just a reminder that the sending off of Comrade Paul will be on Saturday at 7 at the Mabato Convention Center. So we hope to see you all there. Secondly, as we are about to wrap up, do not leave before you just grab some sweets, and there'll be tea at the back there for you to go fetisa mogote o ntse re le mo go ona. Kwa bokhutlong, I wish to take this time and call on the representative of the leader of the alliance, the provincial executive committee member of the ANC, Comrade Pelishia Tsweni, to give us a word from the ANC.
Long live the spirit of Comrade Paul Daphne, long live. Amandla. Long live the spirit of Comrade Paul Daphne, long live. Comrade Program Director, let me assure you of my 3 minutes as I acknowledge the leadership of the Alliance, as I acknowledge the family of Daphne, the Daphne family, Comrade Laura, the leadership of the South African Communist Party, the leadership of COSATU, if they are in our midst, the leadership of SANCO, the leadership of the ANC Veterans League, its Women's League, and the Youth League. Let me also acknowledge the presence of our ambassador in our midst, Comrade Daki Africa, the former leadership of the ANC in both the Northern Cape branch and the first Mahikeng ANC branch, all MDM formations, Maref, Black Sash. Comrades, today we are here to celebrate the life of one of our own, a comrade who died with his struggle credentials intact, one who was never in the media for wrong reasons, a par excellence academic, a teacher, a conservationist, an astute administrator, a fierce fighter for freedom, ethical revolutionary, a cadre of the movement, as we celebrate the life of Comrade Paul Daphne. Today, the ANC is faced, or is actually faced with a whole lot of challenges, ranging from the much talked about triple challenge of poverty, unemployment, and inequalities. And today we lose a cadre of the caliber. We bid farewell to a cadre of the caliber of Comrade Paul. It's indeed a sad moment as we reflect on a life well lived. Many speakers have indicated and have shared with all of us who are here that this was a cadre who actually passed through the eye of the needle of the African National Congress. A cadre who could not be found wanting by any commission of inquiry. We are indeed standing on the shoulders of a great giant like Comrade Paul Daphne today. I also like what Comrade Themba Gwabeni said earlier on when he alluded to the fact that there were those of us who were earlier in the struggle for our emancipation, liberation, and freedom. And such comrades have actually ushered the freedom without expectation. So was Comrade Paul Daphne. Many of us at UNIBO in the 80s and the early 90s, I'm the battalion of the early 90s, by the way. I got to be in his class for 1 week and then he was deported. Doing DEFS 106. DEFS is your developmental studies. We were mentored through his expert delivery of DEFS. He was not only a progressive academic and a leader of the workers, the staff association, under the banner of UDUSA, but also he became a leading figure in the anti-BOB resistance, and later on became the first secretary of the branch of the ANC in Mahikeng. I want to, without any waste of time, once again take this opportunity, comrades, to share our heartfelt condolences to the family, the movement at large. I wish I could sing. I'm running out of songs. Comrade Program Director, let me thank you for this opportunity. Mara, there's this song. Let me just do this one hit quickly. Malibongwe, igama lamakhosikazi. Long live the spirit of Comrade Paul Daphne, long live. Tina Sizwe, Sizwe, Simnya, Sikalela, Lela, Izwele, Heya Tatwa, Tatwa. Amandla. Kondo, 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 kondo wesizwe. Hamba kahle mkondo, wemkondo, kondo wesizwe. Tina bantu mnyama sesmisele, ukuyabulala, ona amabunu. Awetu.
Amanda, I don't want to be called to a red carpet tomorrow by stopping MEC again. We are going to close this session of the memorial service. I'm just going to take time to thank all the speakers, thank all the leadership, to thank everybody, to thank the choir from the office of the Premier, and to thank everybody who made a contribution for this memorial service to happen. Daphne? Okay.
Sorry, colleagues and comrades, let me just make a short announcement. On the 10th of February 1988, there was a coup stage in what used to be called Bophuthatswana. So these are the events that marks important history of our lives. So we will be converging at Sweden. There's a school Comrade Temba told me about, but we will announce that later in the social media and also in different radio stations around. The idea is to commemorate that day and to honor the comrades who staged the coup, even though it was squashed by the South African Defense Force. This is the short message I wanted to give, but we'll give full details later. Thank you.
Thank you, comrade. Let's stand up. We are going to close with a prayer. Let's close our eyes and pray. Father, in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, we thank you. We invited you when we started this program. We have come to the conclusion of the memorial service. We just want to appreciate you, want to say thank you, Lord. Bless each and every one of us. In the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, Father, we pray. Amen.